Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description.
All right. So, one thing that's always fascinated me about, well, life, the universe, whatnot, time, right? Time is the one thing that we have a limited amount of that we can't buy more. We can't earn more. It's something that we're subject to all the time, and it's something that varies in its frequency and its speed and the way that we experience it from a number of different factors. It can actually be the way that we're raised to interpret time that makes it different for each of us. And depending on what we are doing, it can also be interpreted or felt or experienced in a different way. Like, I view time as, different than my lady does. Time seems to go by much faster for me than it does with her. So, like, 5 minutes to me seems much shorter than it does to her. And it's just kind of interesting to always be thinking about, like, how we can play around with time. Now, if you talk to, like, scientists and whatnot, the arrow of time only moves in one direction, right? We go from event A to B to C to D and blah 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 blah. And man, I could talk about so much with this stuff. So forgive me if I'm gonna ramble, but why the hell not? So we live in four dimensions. Everyone that says that we live in 3D is forgetting time, because we have height, length, width, and then time, which encompasses all of it. Height, length, and width gives us matter, and time is what allows that matter to change. It's why we grow old, why the law of entropy happens, where things go from order to disorder. And some of you probably think that your entire life tends to do that. But of course, magic aims to change that order to disorder rather than not just manipulate and change things from going the way they are to something worse, but really the law of entropy or order to disorder means from a state that it is in to a different state. And as people that work with magic, we tend to try to work around that and understand that things are going to change, but we want to manipulate the way that those things change. And magic is a way that you can do that, of course, by creating different events and leaning the angle at which things are going, or the direction in which things are going, from this event that you don't want to this event that you do. So, man, I'm probably going to end up making a class on how to play around with time. And I think that's going to be really cool if I can cook that kind of thing up. But, can we go backwards in time? Not necessarily. We don't have a DeLorean that can, jump to a different time that's calculated on a computer when it gets up to 88 miles an hour, because we are constantly moving into the future. Even as I'm talking, time is passing and I'm growing older and da 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 da. And even if you check on the bottom of this video, you're going to see the time ticking across, right? Yeah. But can we go backwards in time? There's one way that we, in some interpretations, can, and that's in here, in our brains and in our conscious experiences. If we go into meditative states and whatnot, what can we do? Even just by randomly thinking about it, what can we do? We can jump back in time by remembering or thinking about what happened 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, yesterday, 10 years ago, da 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 da. Right? And some people are honestly stuck there. For those of us that have traumatic experiences or regrets or different things like that, we can kind of get stuck in the past. And also, why do you think that some people have things that happen to them again and again and again and again and again? They're repeating events, of course, maybe with the same person, maybe with different people. Of course, those events are different in the way that you are literally not hopping back in time per se, but the same kinds of things are happening over and over. Whether it's the same experiences with every job you get, the same experiences with every relationship you get into, the same old arguments and patterns with your parents or friends or da 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 da. I think you're getting the point. We can kind of get stuck in a time loop or being stuck in the past when things continue to happen or things that have affected us from days ago, years ago, they still echo in our minds. I mean, look at things like PTSD. There's recurring stuff on there. Like for example, so if you guys have ever watched, and I've probably talked about this on my channel before, if you guys have ever watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the claymation movie, the abominable snowman in that movie, when I was a kid, scared the bejesus out of me. I used to have this recurring nightmare that I lived on the second floor. My room was on the second floor of my house, and I had this recurring nightmare that he would try to bust in the window and steal me to probably eat me or something. And to this day, and it's an irrational fear because all fears are irrational anyway, I cannot watch that movie. I cannot see images of the abominable snowman without having a knee-jerk reaction, without having a freak out a little bit where I gotta instantly distract myself with something else. And I've gotten really, really good at it. But the idea of the bumble scares the bejesus out of me. It's an irrational fear, but that's because it's ingrained in me from when I was a little kid. And that reaction that I have is it's the same reaction that I had when I was a kid of fear and whatnot, and it's just looping again and again and again. So this time of year, kind of got to be cautious with what different kinds of things are on store shelves and whatnot, because if I see that thing, it just freaks me out. Where else was I going to go with this kind of thing? So time can be manipulated in a way, and we can travel back in time in order to, what's the purpose with that? Well, to change the way that we think, the way that we react, and the way that we feel about the past. If you go into a meditative state, you can, and depending on your memory and how good you are with visualization and whatnot, and of course you can do things without visualization, you can go into past memories and replay them and reinterpret them, re-experience them from a different angle. Think of it this way. A book that you read when you were, younger, a book that you read a year ago, a book that you read 10 years ago. If you reread it, yeah, you're going to be reading the same book, but your difference in your experiences and the way that you see the world and the way that you think about the world is going to change the way that that book impacts you. It's going to change the way that you think about that book. It's going to change the message that it has for you. I've reread several books over and over again over the years, from House of Leaves to the Dark Tower series to a couple of other book series, even the Harry Potter series I read twice. And it's really interesting to see how you can feel differently or get an entirely different message out of something when you revisit it. And when it comes to revisiting memories, you really got to think about, what things brought you down, what things had a negative impact on you in your past. And you can travel back in time by putting yourself back in your old shoes and re-experiencing certain events. And I remember hearing a thing where, like, if something is hard, then that means you should do it. Or, nothing, like anything that's scary means you should do it. Taking the leap on anything is scary, from starting a new business to, taking an adventure or something like that. And so is cleaning up your closet and, revisiting your past and whatnot. And one of those things is recapitulation. I just did a class on shadow work that's up on Udemy, and that has a lot to do with this kind of thing, with what's called recapitulation, where you revisit a memory and you actually extract the emotions from it. So that way, when you eventually revisit that memory, it's like you're watching an old movie you've seen 1,000 times and it doesn't have an effect on you anymore. If you watch a scary movie and you watch it on a loop, right? Those jump scares and everything, they're not going to scare you anymore. It's going to grow stale. And you can kind of do the same thing with old Memories. Okay, so that we've talked about the past and whatnot. Let's talk about the future. Well, in Magic, of course, we work with the future all the time. We work with what future we want. We plan it. We put energy towards it. We draw that connection from where you are now to where you want to go, and then you act in accord or walk the walk after you're doing the talk, and you get from point A now to point B in the future. So really, Magic is playing around with time because you can jump into the past to revisit and fix things, and you can plan out your own future rather than being the victim of time and the victim of circumstance and the victim of that arrow of time continuing to move where you might feel like you're bobbing on the waves. No, I'm telling you to get in a boat and go in the direction that you want. Sometimes you got to go backwards. Yeah. Let me know what you guys think about this one. Drop it in the comments. What does time mean to you? Have you ever gone back and really kind of, revisited some situations and explored your past in order to heal it and whatnot? And what do you guys think a class on Magic with Time would be like? Good hunting.
Thanks for watching my video. So if you want to check out my playlists, I have, among others, the Simon Necronomicon, the Tree of Life, General Magic, Tulpamancy, a playlist on my books, the elements, stones, the theories that govern magic, and the gods and goddesses of Mesopotamia. If you want to check out my books on Amazon, I have Creating Consciousness, Magical Mechanics, Magical Theater, Handy Sigil Magic, Magical Movement, which is an update and expansion upon Handy Sigil Magic, Magical Mastery, which is a combination masterwork of Magical Theater and Magical Mechanics, and The Guide to the Spheres and Beyond. You can also find me on Facebook at Magickology YT. You can email me at priestofthenecro@gmail.com, and you can even check out my Instagram, which is Magickology. And good hunting. You can also find me on Facebook at Magickology YT. You can email me at priestofthenecro@gmail.com, and you can even check out my Instagram, which is Magickology. And good hunting.